Reverend Amy, please invite me back again. I was going to pick up the microphone. Good morning. Good morning to everybody out there. I love what John said. Those of you who are with us now, those of you who watch the projection of this or whatever, whenever you get it, just hi. It is that song was so perfect. I'm Reverend Jackie, and that song was so perfect because I went metaphysical on it. Okay, the umbrella. If you always hold the umbrella, have your umbrella, that is those phenomenal thoughts and feelings. Indeed, the rainbow, God is always there. It's always over there. It's always hanging over there. It's always hanging over you. And it's only because we let go of the umbrella, we let go of the right thoughts, the right feelings, that we get wet and think the rainbow's not there. Thank you so much for that song. And all the musicians, we love it. This morning, title is, guess what? What does my shirt say? I am enough. That's what the title is. That's what the title is. And when I was so happy when Reverend Amy said, and you're doing chapter 2, having enough. Ooh, because that's our truth. That's our truth. And as we get started, I want all of us to really hold on to thoughts of truth about what's happening in the Middle East. Today, through this particular session, as you go forward, ours is a understanding that thoughts and feelings create. I know that. I know you know that. Even when you don't want to know it, and you're in the middle of a mess, and you say, oh, wait a minute, how did that happen? But the whole world right now has to hold on to thoughts and feelings of truth. God is present. Peace exists. And all is unfolding in a way we may not understand, but it's all right. It's all right. Now the lesson. Repeat after me, please. I am enough. So having enough now is my truth. I am enough. So having enough now is my truth. I am enough. So having enough now is my truth. I want you to hold on to that truth. I want you to hold on to that truth. So whenever anything occurs in your life, you'll remember, hey, I am enough. So notwithstanding apparent difficulties, right now, having enough is my truth. And I want you to hold on as we discuss some of the challenging habits or erroneous beliefs that we may have about money. Okay, I want you to hold on to that. I love what Reverend Amy said last week. She said, hold yourself in grace. Don't blame yourself. Don't beat yourself up. Don't say, I shouldn't have done it that way for all these years. No. All you have is now. All you have is now. And now is so wonderful. It's so full of all the kind of good things. And so, you know, as you recognize any challenges or any erroneous belief that has been operating in your system, I want you to say, okay, it's all right. It's all right. Because right now I know I'm enough. So having enough now is my truth. I love what John Randolph Price said. He wrote, money is my own natural energy yield. My own natural energy yield. That's what money is. And what he is saying is, we are energy. Tell your neighbor, I am energy. That's what you are. That's your energy that has coagulated into some kind of body, okay? But energy is something that I am, and it's something that I use. That's what you use. You use your energy. According to John Randolph Price, your energy is what causes yields effects. Energy is the cause. The effect flows from that. So what is this energy? What is this energy? What is this energy creating? What is this energy? I want you to step back. I want you to think, oh, I'm energy. How does that show up? Well, how does that reflect? Energy, your thoughts and your feelings. They come through. Just like, I don't know an analogy, but if you turn the stove on, the flame comes up, and that which it is, it effectuates, it makes something happen. Energy are your thoughts and your feelings. And so your thoughts and your feelings yield an effect, according to John Randolph Price. Thoughts and feelings, they join together, and then your words and your actions flow, right? So it's important in our discussion about prosperity, from however you think about it, from past times now. It's important in our discussion about that is that the condition of our feelings, the conditions of our thoughts, followed by the words we use, that's important. That's the makeup. Just like the artists use paint to paint the makeup, what we're creating in our lives as it relates to prosperity are our thoughts and our feelings, followed by our words and our actions. And so in discussing having enough, do I have enough this morning, or at any time, in any situation, whether you're talking about a financial situation or a relationship, or whether you're talking about in your professional life, you're talking about having enough. If your thought pattern or thinking includes lack, if your thoughts and your feelings include lack, if it includes anything other than I am enough, I promise you this. You will learn what Julia Cameron has written, that poverty is not the opposite of prosperity, but anxiety is. Anxiety is. If you get into any situation, whether it's in your relationships or finances or your professional life, and you have thoughts that I don't have enough, there's something wrong, then you'll recognize immediately all kinds of anxiety. And Julia Cameron points out so wonderfully, when we are anxious, now we're talking about we want to reflect prosperity, right? Because that's what I am, because, well, I'm jumping ahead of myself. Let me come back to this being anxious, okay? When we are anxious, what do? She says we react. We react. We're reacting to facts. And when I react to facts, I usually make irrational decisions, right? Say right. Yeah. When all the time, I love how all the time, and that's why that song was so perfect. All the time, we could have responded and recognized all the choices that we had, because the rainbow is always there. As Miss Cameron so rightly writes, with choices come opportunity. There's so many choices, and with choices come opportunity. And opportunity is in the midst of every apparent adversity. Opportunity is in the midst of every apparent. How do I know it? How do I know that? How do you know it? You know it too. Because we know, at least we profess to know, that God is everywhere evenly present. God is everywhere evenly present. How often have I said that? How often have I professed to believe that? And the best way to tap into that, God, the best way to look at what choice I have, to use the real opportunity to go into the gold at the end of the rainbow, the best way to do that is to turn within. It's to turn within. It's to leave the apparent adversity out there, Turn within and remember, I am enough. Having enough now is my truth. And allow all that you are to come forward, to come through your thoughts, to cleanse all that other crap out and watch things happen. There's a song, Watch It Happen. Watch things happen. It becomes miraculous, okay? For every apparent adversity, recognize where you are. Where are you? You're right in God's presence. Release any significant facts and turn the facts about the apparent adversity and turn within to touch the hem of the garment. Remembering I am enough. Having enough now is my truth. As Miss Cameron wrote, and as John read a short while ago, thank you, John, thank you. The prosperous heart seeks God. Why? I mean, the prosperous heart seeks God. And I could tell you why, because that's where prosperity is. That's what it is. We think we want a new car. We want just a little bit more of God to ride on. That's all. Rather than relying upon itself, the prosperous heart, you and I rely upon a higher power. Got to. Knowing that God is all powerful, we trust that God is all powerful, and that therefore the indwelling spirit, I loved Reverend Amy said, okay, so some people don't like God. Spirit, I don't care what you call it tree, that which indwells us, that which created us. If we tap into that, that power will come through us. I'm an instrument. You're an instrument. You are here to represent God. You're here to do the work, a purpose for which God placed you here. And so the power can channel through us, through our direction, for we are one. I love that. I'm one with God. Can you say that? I'm one with God? I can't think of the author of the 3 Magic Words. Anybody remember that book, the author of that book? I got to remember. I always want to refer to it. 3 Magic Words. I won't make you say it. I am God. Don't say it. Don't worry about it. But guess what? There's only one thing. There's only one thing. You tell me there's only one thing, and that's God. And so you're a piece of that. God created you out of itself. God created you in its image and likeness. Yeah, that's it. God is not pulling against me. God is not pulling against you. God dwells within me, and God's will for me is absolute good. Can you hold on to that? God's will for you is absolute good. Is that what you learn? Is that what you believe? Is that what you hold on to? God's will for me is absolute good. All I need to do is align myself with God's will, right? And prosperity will flow. Prosperity will be mine. Let's think about this. If I'm created in God's image and God's will for me is absolute good, then being anxious about so-called shortage of any kind, being anxious about so-called adversity is a misuse of my power. It's a misuse of your power. And it simply means that I must recognize once again and remember what? To turn within, to be guided, to be guided, to be guided to my prosperity. You always have it. The rainbow's always there. And as long as I hold up the right thoughts and feelings, I will be guided to the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. I will be guided to my prosperity. Another misuse of our thoughts and feelings, as written by Julia Cameron, is something, I thought about it like this. Thinking and feeling that something in the external is our source of comfort or our source of prosperity. You know what that is? That's an addiction. I know. I love the woman back there. I came up with that. But that's it. It is something. Julia Cameron didn't quite write it like this, but something outside of me is a source of my comfort or prosperity, and that's how I can function, so-called function. Ms. Cameron describes several types of addictions, and she leads us down the path to the understanding that no matter what form addiction takes, it takes us out of ourselves. Remember, it takes us out of ourselves. It takes us into the world. It takes us looking and relying on things. And the addiction to money is no different, she says. Ooh, the addiction to money is no different. See, I am enough, so having enough is my truth. That's my truth. And an addiction will make me put a mask on. An addiction will have me, as she calls it, a disease of denial, because I have left the truth that my prosperity is within me, walks with me, is always around me, and my joy and my comfort is there. I've left that truth, and I've aligned myself with some facts out here to provide me that. That's denial. Eric Butterworth reminds us in his book, In the Flow, which is a phenomenal book about if you're looking for prosperity, In the Flow is a really good book to read. He says that we are in the flow, and he writes, life asks only that you flow with it, that you do not crawl into dark corners of insufficiency and erect barriers. That is really what an addiction is. You've erected this barrier. You've blocked yourself from going within. You're using something out here for your joy and your comfort. He writes, thus the secret of prosperity, according to Butterworth, is that it comes through you and not just to you. It comes through you and not just to you. It comes back. He brings us back to understanding. He brings us back to understanding that prosperity is with us always. The rainbow's with us always, because this indwelling God is the source of our prosperity. It comes through you and not just to you. Of course, he writes that this contradicts the wisdom of the world. The world that has asked, do you want to earn more money? Do you want to make a living? Do you want to achieve security and gain fame and security? That's what the world asks. And then the world tells you it's all to be had out there. It's all to be had out there. Oh, yeah, we know that the job we just had to have, the honey we just had to have, the car we just had to have, it's all out there for us to gain fame and be secure. An addiction to money may be seen in addictively spending money. If I'm addictively spending money, I have chosen to have something, to have to use my money for something, because that's the only way I'll have value. That's the only way I'll be comforted, okay? Or perhaps Ms. Cameron writes that addictively using money is hoarding money. I've got to hoard all the money. Even though I need something, I've got to hoard the money, because there may come a time when I won't have money. Do you understand what she's writing? That's an addiction, she says. She also describes another addiction. She calls it debting. And I think Reverend Amy lifted it up a little bit last week. Making unsecured loans, Ms. Cameron writes. And when you make an unsecured loan, along with other addictive behaviors, you know what you're going to do? You're going to cause yourself to mortgage your life to anxiety. You're coming all the way back through these addictions, which are supposed to bring you prosperity, make you feel good, make you look good. It brings you back to anxiety. Why? Because you have left the God within to go outside to try to get your prosperity, to try to feel comforted, to try to feel secure. And you know what you do with anxiety? You'll recall what I started with? You go within. You go within. You turn and seek guidance from the indwelling God. And that's why? Because that's where your prosperity is. That's where the truth is. That's the rainbow. Addiction, as with any disease, requires us to secure assistance in our healing process. A process through which we will once again come into a consciousness of what? I am enough. If you're addiction of any kind, I have enough is what you want to come back to. And there's a healing process that's required. So I am prosperity, reflecting all that goodness is mine. That's where you want to come back to. I love this book because Ms. Cameron is great with practical implementation of principle with this book, The Prosperous Heart. She writes, the prosperous heart is an honest heart. So if you want to manifest prosperity, part of that is recognizing and being an honest heart. And so she challenges the reader to look at his or her own addictive patterns. And she writes a number of times to fill in the blanks. And I want you to think about it as I'm saying it right now. We won't have time to really do it, but just to get a sense of what she's doing. She writes this, she says, I want you to fill in the blanks. I think I have a problem with fill in the blank. I think I have a problem with fill in the blank. I think I have a problem with, and those of you who are joining us online, fill in the blank. Fill in the blank. And then she takes it even a little bit further, which I said, stop, I don't want to do this. She says, fill in the blank this way. I know I have a problem with fill in the blank. I know I have a problem with fill in the blank. And she does that. And as she says, you have to have an honest heart. So if you find yourself in any way in an addictive pattern, take care of it. Take care of it. Seek the help, always starting with the indwelling God. God will tell you how to proceed. God will tell you, oh, I better call Reverend Amy because I need to get some help. I better call whoever. God will direct you. Don't just do it out of your intellectual capacity. Turn within and touch the prosperity of your being and let it lead you so that you can release any addictive behavior, so that you can start the process and end up recognizing your prosperity. You got that? You got to read the book to hear the whole list of things, but it's a great kind of way to think about releasing or being honest, Now also she says, this was a good one, because this was for us, for those of us who live in America, where our value is sometimes tossed aside to impress somebody. Our value is tossed aside because somebody is inconsistent with what somebody else is thinking. She says a prosperous heart is joyfully living his or her values. Joyfully living his or her values. So I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. Does your use of your money reflect your values? Does your use of your money reflect your values? As you think of your home, its furnishings, do they reflect your value? What about its location? What about, she takes you here. You have to think about, what about the clothes hanging in your closets? Do they reflect your value, or do they reflect what society thinks you ought to be wearing? What about your car? The car you're driving? Not able to pay the car note for a whatever, you get a whatever, because that's will make you seem prosperous to the world. It has nothing to do with their values. Julia Cameron, in her book, described how one afternoon she began listing the things she loved. And this is really good. And she said, after creating this list, it became apparent she was not living the things she loved. The things that she loved, that she valued, that she deemed to be prosperity, were not reflected in her life. And when Julia Cameron, her money, her phenomenal place in New York, are you kidding me? What is she talking about? That was our value. That was our assessment. She says, check yourself. Are you living the things that you love? And what is so great, I taught a book, Neil Donald Walsh, When Everything Changes, Change Everything. And when she recognized, when she went in to the house of prosperity within her, she talked to her indwelling God. And she doesn't write it like this, but I know she had to do it, because how she ended up, she got a whole new list of activity and movement and changes to make that the world would look at and judge, what are you doing? And yet, as she lived out of her values then aligned with the indwelling God, she was living prosperously. She was living happily. She was feeling generous. She was waking up knowing that she was in the right place doing the right thing. It wasn't in New York anymore. But guess what? She knew that change had to happen. And it had to happen because before, the world saw her as successful, but she was not living her values. And a prosperous heart lives his or her values. Do you get that? Some of us are afraid of changing. Ooh, what's going to happen? God's right there. There's lots of choices. If you need to change, because that's going to bring you true joy, not the comments from everyone. Oh, that's really good. You have that? Oh my goodness. You got that? Is that where you work? Oh my goodness. You got a new car? Oh my God. You got that kind of car? Your value will reflect. Living your value will have prosperity. That is a heart of love, a heart that's generous, a heart that is absolutely overflowing, and therefore bringing you joy and comfort if you're living your values. And as she went, that list that she was writing, her conclusion was that she wasn't happy. And in her current life experiences, she made the change, and she did make the change. She wrote, before she made the change, when she was living what seemed to be an ultimately successful life, her heart felt pinched. Her heart felt pinched. and she longed for something that made her heart feel more generous. She practiced what was written about. She practiced what I've been saying. She turned to God. If you check your life out, go and stand in the middle of your closet and turn to God and let God direct you the next time you think you have to spend whatever for whatever. She lived her spiritual truth, she said, as she turned to God. God never closes one door. You know the end of that. Without opening a window, without opening another. A prosperous heart recognizes true prosperity as an inside job. How many times can I say that? Not enough. Okay. It recognizes that prosperity is an inside job and worldly success is not the true measure. It is when we fulfill our desire from within do we know prosperity. I'm fulfilling my desire from within. I am touching the hem of the garment. I am asking God, how do I do this to live all that you would have me live, to experience all that you would have me experience? That's prosperity. That's prosperity. Miss Cameron made the changes, as I said, and she wrote, I found myself to be loving and generous. In other words, she was living with and out of a prosperous heart. Eric Butterworth teaches us that when you get started into the consciousness of the flow of the creative process within you, the flow of the creative process within you, get in that flow, there will be a constant inner direction in your life. An inner direction, that's what we want to stick with. I need to have that over my door. Inner direction. It's not what they say. It's not what they think. Inner direction. It's what God has told me. It's what God thinks. That's what will lead me to a deep sense of meaning, and incidentally, as it flows forth, leading to all that I deem to be prosperity. He writes the houses, the cars, the money. It's all of that. But it flows from the inside out. He says it strongly that concept of the flowing, of the going to God, to going within to get the direction, is tied to what Jesus was saying, seek ye first the kingdom, and the kingdom of God is a universal flow within you. Seek ye first the kingdom. Mrs. Cameron's message is to explore options. Explore options. Don't be afraid of change. Don't be afraid of change. It's so interesting because if you were really to think about it, we are constantly changing. Everything about us is constantly changing. And aren't you getting better and better? Aren't you getting better and better? Okay. So turn within to confirm what direction to take. Turn within to confirm what change to take. Because as the author so powerfully writes, the prosperous heart does not waste time or money. The prosperous heart spends time and money along the lines of its true values, There's one other area before I close I want to lift up really quickly, and it's to learn, how do I put it? How does she put it? I'm going to go right to the way she puts it. Loss is always gain in disguise. Yeah, I know. That's what I did too. I said, what? Loss is always gain in disguise. Loss is always gain. And another way of contemplating that statement and this concept is there is nothing lost in spirit. There's a change of energy. There's a change of the situation. There's a movement. I want to always connect it to nature in the sense that in a few minutes, the trees, all the leaves will be gone. they're not lost. They've served their purpose, and the energy of the tree is turning within so that new leaves can flow next spring. The principle of non-attachment is really important when you think about loss is always gain in disguise. That is, I am attached to God. That is what I'm attached to. Anything else has to be subject to my non-attachment. I am attached to God. And also, I believe in the reality of divine order. Right now, in the midst of our world, if we don't hold on to the truth of divine order and allow our thinking to lead us into action that will express that truth, we're going to be in big trouble. Remember, though loss is always gain in disguise, according to Miss Cameron, and I totally agree with her, understand that grieving is what we do in our human state, and that it's a good thing. I had to hold on to that as I released my sister who made her transition now a year and a half ago. I had to know that her journey was not my business, and though I would prefer to have her in a body, it wasn't happening, and I can always have her in a spirit as I wear her necklace, as it says, believe and hope and faith. I can know that she's always with me. So grieving I did, and grieving I do sometimes. But I know that her movement was a gain for showing me, for teaching me, for letting me know that all is all right. I want you to think right now of a situation that seemed like a loss of some kind. Yet, if not today, at some point when you reflect on it, it will show up. It will make a way. It will help you think for something good and very good in your life. So Ms. Cameron gave you some examples as you read her book. But what she says to help you understand in the big picture, loss cracks our hard outer shell and exposes our vulnerability. And vulnerability is a source of strength. Vulnerability is a source of strength. Vulnerability is a source of strength because in our vulnerability, what do? We turn within and we touch the hem of the garment. We turn within and we lean on the God that dwells there, the Spirit that dwells there. And we remember, I am enough, so enough now is my truth. And so it is. I'm going to go into prayer. And I've shared this book with you before. A friend of mine out in California wrote it. And this poem is called The Power. So take a deep breath and relax and listen. I am the power within you that meets your every need. The garden that will flourish as you nurture precious seeds. I meet you in the sunshine of each beloved face. I hold your hand and whisper, I am amazing grace. Cherish quiet moments. Embrace your soul divine. Be open when I prompt you with what I have in mind. I'm ready when you call me, our partnership ordained. I am the voice that whispers, together, yes, we can. I'm with you when you wander or fail to take a stand. I redirect your footsteps. I am your promised land. I give to you the courage that as you take my way, the gift of new beginnings turn darkness into day. Savor the joy of living, the recreated you, the gift that keeps on giving, a love forever true. Breathe deeply, recognizing God's Spirit flowing through you, in you, available to you. Thank you, God. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for guiding us. Thank you for allowing us to turn within and know prosperity, allowing us to turn within and share prosperity. God, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And so it is.
Thank you, Reverend Jen.